So as you know, our mission with this course is to guide you to write your own marketing plan. And each week we've covered a different step of what it takes to help you get there. And I did get a bunch of questions from you in the beginning. This last week, I didn't have any questions. So I'm hoping that means you were all totally ready. Last week, we covered a really important piece of your marketing plan, which is conducting a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat analysis, or a SWOT analysis. We talked about how to look at and think about competitors and peers and what you should be learning from both of them. We talked about how to take all of the information you got from those reviews and your SWOT analysis and really put them up against your SMART goals and potentially update your SMART goals. How to actually make your marketing strategy that you're developing, this plan, how to make it actionable. And then we talked about the concept of mapping out each month. That is going to come up again next week in particular, because we're going to talk about your specific content plans. We're going to get a little bit into the weeds about what each month's plans should be. But in last week's session, we really looked at the months at a high level and how they all relate to the year. So if you didn't get a chance to attend last week's session, make sure you check out the recording. This week, we're going to cover bringing all your assets together and conducting the review of what you have. We're going to talk in more detail about mapping out the plan of attack for any needed changes, because I did get a few comments on the plans of attack and how that section of the past couple of weeks has been really helpful. So I built some of that into this week as well. And finally, we're going to review how do any of these assets update or, better yet, support your goals. So those are the things that we're going to cover. And Jessica has posted in the chat the information on how to get the past session if you need it. So before we jump into this week's topic, I just wanted to ask, did anybody complete their own SWOT analysis and competitive review, have a sort of a plan attack or goal? Does anybody have any insights or questions that they want to share with the group? All right. So today, I'm happy to tell you, particularly because many of you are probably already thinking about Thanksgiving and all the stuff that you have to do, I'm happy to tell you that this week's course is going to be a little shorter in my instruction, mostly because a lot of the work at this phase has to be done by you individually. And I want to talk, and I'm going to get into that for a minute, but first I want to focus on how to achieve your goals. We've talked multiple weeks about SMART goals and making sure that your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, which is what a SMART goal is. And when your goals are fashioned in that way, it makes it more straightforward, I think, on how to actually achieve them. Because if they're really relevant to what you're doing and they're bound by time, you can sort of just see how to bite-size them out and make it so. If you don't, really make sure you take the time to set milestones. That's what another way of breaking it down is if you want to say, okay, what are the 5 things I need to do to get that SMART goal done? You know, and if you think about it in that way, it makes your work manageable and it helps you feel good about it instead of overwhelmed by it. Be specific about how you're going to reach those goals, make them actionable, like something that you can do, and then make sure that you follow through. I had a friend who I really respect very much talk to me about how I do so much for my customers, for my partners, for my colleagues, for anybody who asks me a question. I do my best to like drop what I'm doing and get back to them. But he said, but you let yourself down consistently. Like you blew off the fact that you wanted to work on this goal for you. And what I learned from that experience was if you want your business to be successful, then you have to treat appointments with yourself or your opportunity to get your SMART goal done as sacred time. Right? Like, and you're devoting a lot of time by taking this multi-week course, which is fantastic. Make sure that you close the loop and follow it all the way through by taking action on some of what you're learning about over the course of this course. Excuse me. All right. So here's where we look at your assets. And for some of you, this is a lot. For some of you, it's not too many. But this is where we're going to take a look at every single thing you've got going on. Oh, that's good, Kitty. Thank you for that sharing in the chat window. Grab your business cards, your ads that are in the chamber booklet, your brochure if you have one, your website, your Google My Business page, your Facebook page, literally any print advertising that you've done. Every single thing that you have in your business that represents your business to other people, the sign on your store, the physical sign on the outside of your store, signage on the inside of your store, everything that you have that's talking about your business or represents your business. Bring them all together. And then if you happen to have sales teams or an HR team, which I know most of you don't, but if you did, bring in what they're using to talk about your business. Get them all together and then make sure that they have a unified voice. If you were going past them really quickly and you couldn't read the words, would they visually look similar enough that you'd recognize that they were all related to the same business? Like as the color palette, the logo treatment, the fonts, is that all recognizable? Does it support your brand and the sort of the voice and unique story that you developed in week 2 and 3? Does it tell the story of your business or represent you in a way that you like? And if the answer is yes, then this week's class is going to be super fast for you. If the answer is no or sort of, then that's where you really want to sit down and think about, like, is there any work for me to be done? In our first session, I covered this at a high level and shared with you an experience I've had with one of our clients that actually spent like it's a college here in Maine. And it took some time to actually get all these assets because people were talking about the college in many different departments and all over the place. And the key thing he learned was people were using the logo differently. They were using color palettes differently. They chose their own like headlines and things. And to some extent, that's great. But to some extent, he really had a lot of work to do for us to bring that together and make it have a unified voice. Because if it has a unified voice, then that means that me as a consumer, if I happen to see an email about you and then I come across your Facebook page or an advertisement that you've placed, I will recognize in my subconscious that it is you. And that is what makes your advertising and your marketing work much more effectively. And if you have sort of a scattershot voice and it doesn't relate very well, then it means the chances are high that people will miss your marketing and it won't work as well for you. So that's why this step is so important. Take the time to look at it all. Even something as simple as like your about description in Facebook. Does it match or work with the about description on LinkedIn and your website? And do they all sort of tell the same story? It doesn't have to take a long time, but this is a big part of really trying to get to the root of all the work that we have to do in your marketing plan. So the next thing to do is get organized. And I know that this is a crazy time with the holidays, but it's also a wonderful time to think, okay, I've got a month, 6 weeks left in this year. I'm gonna really pull everything together so that I'm ready for 2021. I know all of us are ready for 2021 to be better than 2020, and being organized is a great way to get that ready to happen. So like standardize your file names. I worked with one client, we pulled together all the photos, like job site photos, team photos, Facebook worthy photos. It just created a few folders that both of us could access. That made him feel really like much more on top of what they had for assets. You can standardize file names and include a date if you wanted, or just these are fall projects, spring projects, Christmas stuff, whatever, so that you can find things really quickly, especially when you're busy. You may want to implement a marketing asset folder or storage. For the particular client I just mentioned, we created a Dropbox folder that his team and our team can access, and everything's really clear, and he can just say, grab an image out of the Facebook images and use that, and that's fine. And we're all on the same page. You can categorize, as I said, apply a status to them, like needs updating, like create a folder of all the different pieces that you found that really just need a refresh or need to be updated, refreshed for branding or any other things that you'd like to have done. And then archive outdated stuff. This is something I really need to do. I went to snag a logo today for a proposal that I was doing, and I grabbed it and I was like, wow, I think this is from 2012. And I'm confident that it's probably not the latest version of this document. So I really need to do a better job of sort of, you know, taking the older stuff and putting it off to the side somewhere. All of us can always get better. But this is some of the stuff that you can do once you've got all your assets together. Oh, one other thing that I do at this phase is, I'm thinking of the client, the Maine Lobster Festival. We do all of their print advertising in addition to everything digital. And each year I'm going to get, you know, I have certain times of year that I have to place these ads. So one of the things that I do in the winter is when things are a little slower, when I'm doing the getting organized part, is I will look at all the ads we placed last year. I'll look at our budget for 2021. And I already know what we're going to place. Like, I don't need to wait for April or May to come for somebody to call me and say, hey, we're ready for your ad. I get them all redesigned while it's a little slower. I get them approved by the client while they're slower. And then we proactively ship stuff out, or at minimum, I have it at the ready when they call from the different outlets. So that's another thing you can think about when you're getting organized is if you know what's coming and you can put it in your marketing plan, then you can put it in your action plan and get ready. So once you've got all your assets together, you're starting to get organized, it's time to look at it all and say, you know, what needs updating and how, what can I do myself and where do I need some help? Like maybe you need a logo designer to update the file, or maybe you are doing great and you just need to resize it in a few different sizes for the different social networks. Like, what can you do on your own and where do you need to solicit? How do these assets tell your story? Like, remember your story and how your customer is the hero and you're the one with the plan to help get it all done. Do those assets reflect that about you? Do you feel really good? Like they tell the potential customers that you're the one with the plan? Do they recognize and speak to that target audience that you identified in your target audience segment? And are they speaking in the language of the customer, which is something we did talk about at length? And if you see anything that isn't, set it aside for action later. So these are, the review is kind of an important thing. This also, frankly, helps you set up your plan for the year, your marketing plan for the year, and your budget. Does your website, for example, need a little bit of a refresh? And if so, even if you're not going to purchase that now, you want to plan for that. Put it in your budget, get it in your marketing plan, start thinking about what you're going to be looking for a web designer, et cetera, et cetera. It's really important to be able to be proactive, plan ahead, and really control this process as much as possible. And this review really helps. So then you develop your plan of attack. You want to know where you want to go and create measurable goals. Like perhaps your measurable goal is you would like to double site traffic and increase signups to your email list in the first quarter of 2021. Those are two of your goals. If they are, then we need to have some relevant tasks around it. We need to set a time-bound goal for the SMART and make it 3 months and say, these are the steps I need to take to my website, to promotion of my email list and my email itself so that I can achieve those goals. So list out the steps that you have to take, divide, if it's big, like update website, divide it into smaller ones, like make a list of what I like and don't like about my website. Search for websites that I do like and why. Reach out to potential website developers and ask them to bid on the project. Those are 3 steps that are really important to that process and just help you get moving, which I think for most of us is half the battle. You could decide on deadlines for what you're doing and track your actions regularly. Like, hold as much as you want to honor yourself and your commitments to yourself. You also need to hold yourself accountable and make sure that you're getting the job done. Now it's time to set some priorities. So what I like to do here is, a lot of times you'll have something that's burning. And if you're like me, a lot of times the things that are burning on the top of my pile are burning for someone else, not necessarily me. You know, somebody decides that this deadline is my problem. And sometimes it is me that needs to get things done. So what you want to be thinking about is, where can I really have the greatest impact? And I say this because, you know, we're all entrepreneurs. We're trying to get as much done as we can get done. And we want to try to, you know, come out of the gate having the biggest impact we can. So sometimes I'll choose something as a top priority because I know I can really make great strides focusing on that. And then I'll go back to something that potentially maybe it's going to take me a little bit more time to get done, or it's more of a subtle thing than a big impact one. So I look at things that are going to increase my revenue, get my name out there to more people, that are of service to my potential customers, maybe farther ahead than organizing the files on my computer so it's easier for me, for example. Yours might be different. So think about where you can have the greatest impact. And then I think about money, like, what can I afford to tackle? And maybe, you know, if there's 4 things that needs to be done, I might need to do 1 per quarter so that I make sure that I'm investing wisely. So as you're going through this priority setting, what starts to happen is your 12-month calendar starts to come together. We talked about that calendar last week and how you want to be thinking about months and what happens, like, oh, I have a sale in February. We have a big event in April. A lot of my customers start coming in May. You know, you want to start thinking about that calendar. This really helps here too. When you start thinking about, out of all the goals you've set for yourself over the course of the past several weeks, where can I have the biggest impact, and how do I put them, prioritize them? Your calendar starts coming together. You know, think about, I'm going to do these things this month, these things the next month, and create an action plan for yourself. Be your own personal trainer and help you figure out what you need to do the most. And then the other thing I look is, what's going to resonate the most with my target audience, or the pieces that I use the most. So if I looked at all my assets and, you know, the chamber booklet can't be renewed for 8 months anyway, I'll just put that on my list, get it on the calendar for the month that it's due, and really focus on stuff that I'm using all the time, like maybe my proposal template, for example, or maybe my Facebook page and what I'm putting on my Facebook page, because people are looking at that every day. And then finally, make sure that everything aligns with your SMART goals. So the other thing I wanted to share with this is, if you pull all your things together and you're frustrated because they don't align, it's super normal, right? And so I think what I want you to do from now on after this course is, next, you aren't going to need another course on a marketing plan, because you're going to know what to do. You're going to know your strengths and weaknesses. You're going to know what makes you uniquely you and your unique selling point. So recognize that your marketing assets have a natural life cycle. They're going to evolve over time. You're going to brainstorm and design them, manage them, start using it. And then you might realize it needs a little refresh, right? Like Lobster Festival, we haven't refreshed the logo, I think, since 2003 or 2002. So this year we're going to look at a refresh of the design there, and change is hard for some people, but we go through this exercise every few years where we start looking at different pieces to manage them. So this is a normal part of managing your assets. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Kelly just shared in the chat, for those of you who aren't seeing the chat, that she's definitely using this class to calendar for 2021. And she put cleanup assets on the calendar. Probably didn't give it enough time, but it's probably a start. You know what, Kelly, that is great. And I think just recognizing, first of all, sometimes you're surprised just when you get them all together. Like maybe you forgot that that chamber listing is actually part of your marketing. And by really inventorying and get them all in front of you, it gives you a bigger sense of what you can actually use to promote yourself. And then here, by recognizing that they all have a life cycle, it's just a natural evolution. As your business grows, expands, or you shift directions, a lot of these assets need to reflect those shifts. And by managing those assets more proactively, you'll be able to make sure that they're all working for you as much as you want them to. So now it is time to get to work on inventorying them. As I said, this was a shorter one because this is more work for you on your own time to start pulling all those pieces together, really inventorying them, organizing them, then reviewing them together, and then thinking, okay, now what do I need to do, right? Because those steps need to be taken as part of your marketing plan. Now, here's a great one that you might not think about. Sometimes some of the work you have to do is an asset that's missing. And the biggest one that I find missing for small businesses is a Google My Business page. So perhaps you've got a website, you've got your business card, you've got a brochure, you've got a Facebook page, and you think you're all done. And Google My Business is your storefront or your business on the biggest search engine in the world. So everybody ought to have one of those bad boys. And if you need help on how to update it, claim it, optimize it, or anything like that, ping me over the course of this week in between now and then, and I will send you some ideas on how to fix it. Or this is going to sound stupid, but because they are who they are, you can also Google claim my Google My Business page, and they have all the instructions on how to do it. That's a great example of an asset. It's one of the first assets I look for when a customer comes to us and we look at everything. I'll say, oh, wait, where's your Google My Business page? Because that one is what's going to be the fundamental thing that helps you get found in search engines. So start pulling those things together, thinking about how they're all going to fit, any changes you need to do. I know a couple of you on the call are newer in business. And if that's true, you're probably lucky enough that things are set up the way you like and you don't have a lot of changes, but you might have some missing pieces like Google My Business, for example. Or for those of you that are business to business, it could be a personal LinkedIn profile, might be something that's an asset that you haven't had the time to do, but you really could use. Think about what you have and what you don't have and start that review process and prioritizing what to fix. So your homework for this week is to review all of your assets, list and prioritize what actions you need to take. And if you're really like an overachiever, do like we just discussed and get them on your calendar a little bit, right? Like this month, I'm just going to tackle one thing, right? And next month, I'll tackle one other thing. And you'll find that you'll really be setting yourself up for success. Next week, what we're going to cover is creating your content plan. And we're going to look at it in the lens of a month. So let's say we are creating the content that you're going to be posting on either your website or social media for the next month, like December. And we're going to go through that. So if you can visualize in your mind that your marketing plan has your goals, your big goals in it. And if it's a 12-month calendar, it's got all these different tasks that you need to do, your action plan for those goals. It might also have some to-do items from the review of your assets today. And we'll also have, here's what I'm going to post about my business and what I'm going to say to move my business forward over the next month. And it might also have a sale in it, like if you're having a sale for the holidays, for example. And pretty much once you get those pieces together, then you really are almost done. We're getting very close to being done. We have just a couple of more weeks left. So I wanted to take a few minutes, open it up for questions, and also try to get you out early because I know many of you are preparing for Thanksgiving and trying to get ready to If you're not welcoming your family, at least eat some good food.